Hey, welcome to the Clive Barker Podcast, episode 43. This one is, we just recorded yesterday as I'm recording this, but it was Jose and myself. I'm Ryan, and Max, who talked to us last time about Hellraiser sequels. So this was a good episode. I'm not a big fan of these, later Hellraiser sequels, and so this is the beginning of the hey, you're in hell and you don't know it. Hellraiser sequels. None of Clive Barker's movies do that. That's kind of a thing that we feel probably they took from other places, or a trope, I guess you could say. So anyway, Hellraiser Inferno, which is the fifth movie, Hellraiser 5, it's not really officially called Hellraiser 5, but Hellraiser 5 Inferno, and Hellraiser 6 Hellseeker. So, welcome to the Clive Barker Podcast. I'm Ryan, and with me today is Jose.
Hey.
And from our last Hellraiser sequels episode, Max.
Hi, everyone.
So, first of all, it's great having you back.
So, I guess the first one is that Clive Barker just confirmed that Oliver Parker is going to be directing a live-action version of The Thief of Always.
Oh, neat.
Oh. Well, the same Oliver Parker that was in the Hellraiser film?
Yeah, and Peliquin.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great news, yeah.
So, I love that book.
Well, and it's interesting because the Thief of Always has been in sort of a movie limbo for since the 90s.
Yeah.
Is it going to be live does it say if it's going to be live action or if it's going to be...
Yeah, it said live action.
Oh, cool.
Clive Barker said live action. So I think the fact that a director's been picked out, doesn't make it 100%, but that helps.
Yeah.
With the hope, I guess, that this is going to be a real project.
Sure. I guess it's one of the attempts that Seraphin is making to start making movies based on Clive Barker's works.
Yeah. Well, geez, that would be so great. I wonder how many scripts there are for that movie.
Who knows?
Yeah.
A lot of treatments for sure.
Yeah.
But I always thought, I guess I'm not the only one here, but I always thought that Harry Potter kind of drinks a little bit from the fountain of the Thief of Always, at least in the beginning of the story of the first movie. We have the kid is visited by this grinning creature that tells him, hey, Harvey Swick, that's the name of the kid, right? Harvey Swick.
Yeah,
he's visited.
And Rictus.
Rictus, right.
Yeah.
And then in Harry Potter, you get Harry Potter being visited by that, is it Dobby?
Was that the second one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then that's the second one probably. I haven't seen all the movies from Harry Potter, and I haven't read the books, so my knowledge is limited. I always thought that scene reminded me of The Thief of Always when Harry Potter is visited by Dobby, and it's like Harvey Swick being visited by Rictus. Well, but anyway,
that's the point. And those did come out later.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and I read the first Harry Potter because it was sitting on a teacher's desk when I was a substitute, and the kids were watching the same a quarter of a movie every single period.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, it was getting really boring, so I just read that book.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but I guess it didn't grab me enough to go out and read all the other ones.
Yeah. So that's great. That's a great piece of news. So Oliver Parker is doing an adaptation of The Thief of Always.
Yeah.
Finally, let's see if hope that thing really becomes a reality.
And he's a pretty renowned director in the UK, right?
Yes, he did St. Trinian's and
Dorian
a few
Gray. There was like a remake of Dorian Gray that he did, right?
Yes, he did an adaptation of Dorian Gray as well.
I haven't seen any of the things that he's directed, I don't think, but...
So
right.
you guys mentioned earlier that he had something to do with Hellraiser. I forget, what was his connection with Hellraiser?
He was a moving man in Hellraiser 1.
Okay.
And also Hellraiser 2. He's the guy who gets
sucked into the
killed.
Mattress, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Ending.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And he's Peliquin in Nightbreed, of course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the next one, Clive Barker also mentioned on Facebook that David Barron is going to be involved in the Abarat movies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah. Wonderful. So, wait. I mean, I know that the Abarat adaptations have been mentioned several times, and at one point they were going to be made by Disney, then the deal fell through. So now we really have... I remember reading this on Twitter like a year ago that Clive Barker was saying, we're going to make some movies based on Abarat, so... Now, this is a new development on that same project that was announced, I guess.
And I think that Clive was also concerned that they would make the movies faster than he could write the books.
Right.
But now there's only 2 books left, and one of them is almost done. So it's, it would be 4 years before they could get through all of, get to the last book. So I think it could be done.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. Apparently, I remember him saying something about it on the Facebook Q&A in December of last year. And I'm actually looking for it now, and I think I found it. He said, I am very optimistic that we will have news about an Abarat movie at some point in the future, but my Irish-Italian ancestry makes me a superstitious son of a bitch, and I don't want to spoil our chances to make something come to fruition by getting too cocky or certain about any future possibilities. Let me say this. If there is any project of mine which seems to holler, film me, it would be the Abarat books. There, as you all probably know, 5 in total. The scale of the story expands exponentially as we move towards the cosmic climax of those 5 books. It's going to be an incredible challenge for the filmmakers who take on the project to create the mystical visions and transfigurations that the whole journey of the Abarat book is taking us towards.
And I think the official Abarat page recently shared a CGI 3D render of a Terry cat.
I saw that. That was pretty cool.
And I mean, that must have been done as some kind of a concept thing for a movie, you would think, right?
I don't know. Maybe it was just a fan. I saw it, but I don't remember what it said.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a fan that did it.
Yeah,
it wasn't super complicated.
Yeah, it could have been one of those DeviantArt posts that they share from DeviantArt sometimes. I'm trying to find it. Yeah,
and and then there was just an announcement on Labyrinth, right? That Paul Kane.
Yes. The scribe configuration by Paul Kane. Paul Kane designed the box, and Mark Buckle drew it up. And I think you can read the story already at the Labyrinth site.
Oh, but, great.
We're looking forward to making that a reality here with a brass reproduction of it.
And wonderful. For people that don't know, Paul Kane is a serious Hellraiser aficionado. I mean, I think he knows more than anybody about Hellraiser.
Yeah, he's a writer, and I would say Hellraiser scholar.
Yeah.
And he did the Hellraiser films in their Legacy book, and he's also responsible for the interview book called Hellraisers that's going to come out soon, I think, with interviews with the cast. So that sounds really exciting. I'm really looking forward. I got to go to the Labyrinth site and read that.
Well, and then we just talked, I think a couple episodes ago that his first book is going to come out in paperback soon, which is great because I've just never gotten I've just never.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Yeah, and it's expensive right now, so I just have never owned it, but.
Right, the Hellraiser films and their Legacy.
Yeah, it's like $45 on Amazon.
Yeah, it's been that way from the beginning.
Really?
You never find it for under $45 or $40. It's a hardback. It's I bought it, and it's a great purchase. But it'll be great to see it come in paperback, so it'll be more widely distributed.
Yeah, and more accessible.
Right.
Okay, well then in Occupy Media News, Russell teased that there will be new screenings announced in the U.S., and the last U.S. screening of the Nightbreed Cabal cut will be October 20th.
Right.
And he won't. It won't be until next week that he'll announce where those screenings are.
But we can say it rhymes with con, so whether it rhymes with Comic-Con, it will be a different matter. But it does rhyme with con.
You mean it ends with con?
It ends with con, but we can't say which con it is. But so stay tuned.
And Russell also did. We can say this because Russell also did mention at the screening in Portland that there's one coming up in Japan.
Oh wow!
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah, they like that stuff there. They're crazy about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that the people that host the conventions are usually the ones that do the translating for them, which is pretty cool for the subtitles.
Yeah.
So they just give them a transcript and then they just translate it. And
it must be funny to see. And now I know you're talking about subtitles, but it must be funny to see Nightbreed dubbed in Japanese.
Yeah. I saw Predator dubbed in Japanese, but never Nightbreed.
Oh, right. I have a DVD of Nightbreed dubbed in Italian. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
So, and then in site news, Crystal Rain just did a review of after having recently read The Thief of Always for the first time. So that's up on the site, so you should check that out.
Very appropriate that she would do that because there's news about an adaptation coming out, so she's pretty lucky. She got into Nightbreed just a year before, or like the year that the Cabal Cut started coming out, and now she read The Thief of Always at a time when it seems like sometime soon we might have an adaptation of the book. So,
and actually, if you try to find the hardcover of Thief of Always, it's not so easy to get anymore.
Yeah, I don't have. Is that the one with the painted cover by Clive Barker?
Yeah.
The house and okay.
When I was trying to buy all the children's books for Joey, by Clive Barker, I was looking them up, and Thief of Always was actually kind of rare and expensive. There was a time when I owned 5 of them, but I gave them away because I was at a book signing, and you could only bring one book for every copy of Thief of Always that you bought. So I wanted to get more stuff autographed, so I bought a whole bunch of copies of Thief of Always when it first came out.
A practical idea, yeah.
And I had people standing in line for me.
Yeah. You got all your family members.
Yeah.
I actually bought the audio tapes for Thief of Always back in the 90s when it first came out. Yeah. I got them someplace in a box here.
Who was the... And when I went to the screening, we actually started out in a theater, and Clive read the first chapter of Thief of Always, and then we went back to the line. We had like placeholders for from whenever we bought the book, and we'd go back to our place in the line and do the signing. So who did the reading for the audio tapes?
I can't remember. It's been a very long time since I listened to the tapes, but I'll look into that.
I wanted to buy them, and then because I was so awesome when Clive read it, and then it's like, oh hey, he didn't do the audio version.
Yeah, I don't remember him doing the audio right offhand, but
I think he only did the Hellbound Heart. I think that's the only book that he's ever read for. Right? I mean,
I'm pretty sure I have those audio tapes too.
Yeah.
I was actually looking into the. I was looking on Amazon to see if I could find the audiobook for
Thief of Always.
The Thief of Always, yeah. But I can't seem to find the name of the person who's reading it. So if we do find it out, we'll mention it up later.
Yeah, no problem. So we can go on to the main topic unless you guys have any other news that you want to share.
I'd like to share a piece of news. Mark Buckle, in his last message to me, wanted to mention that Pyramid Gallery and the Labyrinth are collaborating with Anna Lovett once more for a new box.
Oh, cool!
Oh, great!
So that'll be But I think that's about it.
Any teasers about names or history?
I believe it's called the Eighth Year configuration.
Oh, I think I saw pictures of that on Facebook.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to look that up.
I remember seeing that word.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
thinking, what a strange word.
Yeah, it's drawn from occultism and I believe some Aleister Crowley stuff. But yeah, it's an interesting concept, but I haven't yet seen too much on it.
Cool. Okay, well, something to look forward to.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the dreaded main topic for this week, Hellraiser. First, we'll do Hellraiser 5 Inferno, and then we'll go on to Hellraiser 6 Hellseeker. And I'm giving them numbers, but at this point they've dropped numbering the Hellraiser movies. Right? This was never really called Hellraiser 5.
Right.
No.
But it helps us to know their chronology. If I like to call them that anyway.
Yeah, I used to get Hellseeker and I can't. Dead or confused which numbers they were because I wasn't a huge fan when I first watched them. But
yeah, same thing here. And Deader and Hellworld came out in the same year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were filmed back to back in Romania by Rick Botta, which was the director.
He's also the director for Hellseeker, so he's got the most. He's done the most Hellraiser movies out of any director.
So Inferno was the first direct-to-DVD movie in the franchise, right?
And we can probably attribute that to first of all, it's kind of crappy, but also because Hellraiser 4 was such a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they just finished Bloodlines so they could, hopefully make like 5 and 6, and that's pretty much why that franchise didn't die with 4. They were like, well, let's finish this, make it an Alan Smithy movie. We just want to make sure that we can still do 5 and 6.
Wow,
right.
So Hellraiser Inferno came out in 2000. It was directed by Scott Derrickson and written by Paul Harris Boardman and Scott Derrickson.
Yeah, they also did the Exorcism of Emily Rose together, I believe.
Yeah, and Scott Derrickson, I think, co-wrote and directed Sinister, which I was surprised to find that out last night because I actually like Sinister.
I haven't seen that. I've just played the video game.
Seen it. Is that the one with the Bagul demon?
He's got like a red face and.
Yeah, like he lives off the spirits of children or something like that.
Exactly. That's the one.
Okay.
And
I saw the trailer.
Yeah, and their kid astral projects when he sleeps, and that's what gets them all into trouble.
Is it worth checking out? I haven't heard of it before.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I didn't really care for the ending of it, but I thought it was a good movie.
It's with that actor. What's his name? I forgot the name of the actor that's in. He's like a writer, and he moves into a house where there was a violent murder with his family or something like that. But anyway, that's Sinister.
Darkness?
No. I think I'm talking about the same movie here, Sinister.
Oh, no, Sinister.
No, Sinister is where he and his family, like the kid, they think he's possessed, but he goes into a coma, and it turns out that he's astrally projected himself so far away that he got lost, and this demon's going after him, and things from the other side are using the kid's body to sort of like poltergeist the house.
Oh, then I guess I'm thinking about another movie that came out last year, which was with. Wait, I think we're talking about the same movie. You saw the movie. I haven't seen the movie. That's probably my confusion is caused by me. I know that there's Scott Derrickson made The Sinister, which is a 2012 movie with Ethan Hawke, and But anyway,
okay.
And he finds a box of home movies from a family that had a violent death in the house that he's living in, right?
Okay, so one of us is confusing because he's got a slightly older movie like 2011.
Oh, okay.
And it's got a name that's really similar. So it's either Sinister or it's the other one.
You're probably talking about the other one because Sinister is a 2012 supernatural horror film.
Okay.
It follows true crime writer Ellison Oswalt as he discovers a box of home movies that puts his family in danger. So that's Sinister. Okay. But anyway, and he also did. Scott Derrickson also made The Day the Earth Stood Still remake, I think.
Yeah, which was forgettable. With
Keanu Reeves, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, opinions on the film.
Well, I I actually somewhat liked the opening scene where it had the rotating lament panel and kind of played up on a clock motif where it moved into the opening scene where he's playing chess and there's a clock for the basketball court. There's a clock, the clocks for the chess game they're playing as well. So I thought there was kind of a neat connection there. Visually, as far as
it's kind of cool. I think that the characterization of him is kind of screwy.
Yeah,
it's like he's a dirty cop. He's like a genius. He's a jerk, but he loves children. But his informant's a pedophile. That he just turns a blind eye to that.
The movie reminded me a lot of the video game Max Payne. I'm not sure if you guys ever played those games at all.
I've seen the movie Max Payne.
Now that was nothing.
That was a good title for that movie because it was really painful to watch.
Yeah, I watched it too. It had nothing to do with the video game, really. It was the video games are really a work of art. I really like the Max Payne series, but it plays up on that whole amnesia thing, which is, with both the movies we're going to be talking about, is a very strong thing as far as using that as a theme.
Yeah, and people kind of figuring out that they were jerks in their real life.
Right.
That's another recurring theme in both these movies that we're discussing, is that it's about guys who start having memory issues. More on the Hellseeker, I guess, than Inferno, but they kind of live in their own world and they're like self-absorbed characters, and they think they're actually nice guys, but they're really not. So
it's such an old trope because the movie Angel Heart and Jacob's
Total Recall.
Yeah, Total Recall, right. Yeah. Jacob's Ladder is another favorite of mine.
And Jacob's Ladder, I mean, geez, I actually wrote a note about Jacob's Ladder in here because there's a lot of stuff that's taken, for both of these movies, that's taken directly out of that movie.
Oh, yeah, particularly in Hellseeker with the hospital scenes and things like that. Yeah.
And they actually, they do a scene where it's from the point of view of the cart that's being wheeled down the hallway and the wobbly wheel.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's like, holy crap. I mean, they just stole they stole the whole premise to start with.
Right.
Somebody that doesn't realize that they're in hell, but we all know it. I mean, you could tell in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yes, exactly. There was also a video game that I'm mentioning all these video games for some reason, but I think it's because the movies actually draw from games like Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle of Flesh, which is also plays. It's almost exactly like Hellseeker in a lot of ways because you work in an office. So anyway,
it's funny that you mentioned computer games because. There's another game which I actually played, which was Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which is also about this guy who wakes up and he doesn't know who he is and he's in this haunted house, but that's pretty much the only thing about the trope of waking up, not knowing who you are, where you are, what you're going to accomplish.
And then when you start investigating it, you get yourself into something that you'd be better off not.
Not knowing. Yeah. And another video game that was like that was an old game in the early '90s called Sanitarium, which was really good as far as using that same type of theme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really like the opening sequence as well of the film. I like the music, the score of the film.
This one doesn't. I mean, and this is the first time where they don't even try to imitate to imitate the score from Hellraiser 1 or 2.
Right.
This is the first time that they just said, "Forget it. We're just going to do our own thing."
I guess it was also a way of saving money because that way they don't have to pay for, like Christopher Young's or they don't have to use the same music. They don't have to use the same box music or something. I guess that.
Frankly, by this time, I think it's time that the movies did move on with a different score because it's so, Christopher Young's theme is so tied in with those first two movies and somewhat with number 3 as well. But
quite true.
The first time that I saw Hellraiser Inferno, it was it was kind of scary, I thought, or I was sort of on the edge of my seat and there was suspense. So, but that's lost now. I mean, watching it this second time, I was just bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say that I did catch one of the quotes early on that I wouldn't have caught the first time I watched it, where the I can't remember who it was at the police station says, "Good morning, detective. It looks like you could use an autopsy yourself." So I thought that was somewhat clever. So when speaking to Joseph Thorne.
Yeah. And so just to mention the name, the composer of the score was called Walter Rezova, and I actually have the score. It's really nice. It's kind of a mix between electronic and classical. And so basically, it's an interesting introduction. We see like Thorne playing chess and like with a professor, and it's funny because it seems a little out of character after you watch the rest of the film that he would be like a chess player after he plays like a basketball game. But I understand it's really cool, the whole dynamic, and it's pretty quickly cut scene, and
it's not just a casual game of chess. It's like a professional where they're banging on the timers, and his opponent is like, he calls him professor, so it's supposed to be like, look at me, I'm a chess genius.
Yeah, it's like a speed chess.
Yeah,
and he does mention later on at the crime scene at the house that he played basketball in school, and they teased the Cho character to death. Right. And so there's this level where they're trying to show him both as a jock and a intellect of some sort, but
and he likes,
and a magician.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he likes word puzzles, and Nanonin, his partner. He points out that his name is a palindrome, and like, how could the guy live his whole life and never know that?
Good point. So it's kind of a mishmash of things in this character that it's hard to relate to this guy because he's kind of like, he's a detective, then he's got a drug problem, then he's got like, he's supposed to be really smart when he plays chess, but on the other hand,
Yeah, and he says, I believe in fidelity while he's looking for prostitutes.
Yeah, I believe in loyalty, fidelity, and it's like, okay, well, that's typical, justification for someone who doesn't want to admit they really don't care about those words at all.
Yeah.
But I thought that the wife and the daughter in the movie, they're a little, they're cardboard characters.
Oh, they're so weak.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like the daughter going, Daddy, I want you to stay home, or like, Daddy, wait, I want my daddy, and it's like,
there's
haven't phoned it in anymore.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like lines in the film which are just like obvious setups for later things, like when he's talking to his informant and he's like he's slapping his informant. It's like, I'm not your whipping boy. Yeah. Of course, he's gonna get killed by a whip, and he's gonna say that line again when he comes back from the dead, like, I'm not your whipping boy, and he's got his back all whipped.
And the wife she just kind of looks sad. She never brings anything up or argues with him or, says, hey, what is going on? You said you're on a case, but you just stayed up all night.
Yeah.
You stayed out
and
all night.
It might be purposeful because they're not meant to be real people. After a while, you get that it's just like he's inside his own private hell.
Well, and that's a weird thing, too. I always wonder, like, are all of these people supposed to be actors? What are they? These people that are there just to orchestrate
like figments, projections, I would say figments.
Right. So is he's inside of his own mind, or is he in a physical place that's hell?
Well, that's the interesting concept of what the labyrinth can be, I guess. Some of it does remind me of some of the stories that were in the Epic comic series, where you have different types of writers and stuff reinterpreting, the Hellraiser movies for their stories. Yeah. So I do appreciate the movie for that. I think it holds up just as well as some of the later movies like Hellseeker and Deader. I did like watching both of these movies because when I first watched them, I was really irritated with Schaefer's acting and with everything about the movie. But so I just watched it last night, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I did.
It was the opposite for me. I think I liked it a lot more the first time I saw it, but now like another thing that irritated me was Pinhead's speech at the end.
Yeah, Pinhead's lines, they're very, very like monosyllabic, and it's like they don't have any of that grandeur that we remember from like Bloodline and Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth. It's like it's a known fact that Doug Bradley had to rewrite a lot of his last lines of dialogue, the speech that he gives at the end of the movie. Doug Bradley actually had a lot of feedback on it. There's an interview that was made by Mark Adams of Hellbound Web. Mm-hmm. He interviewed Scott Derrickson, and it's interesting. You can read a lot of stuff about the movie and his choices for the film, how he decided to start make tabula rasa of all that was like Hellraiser mythology at the time. He just wanted to start over again.
Well, and he made that decision for everyone, right? I mean, after that, that was the way that you make Hellraiser movies.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of hallucinations, some tormented character, and in the end, Pinhead comes on, does like a Deus Ex Machina speech, and it wraps it up.
Yeah, he explains to the audience, like, just in case you didn't figure this out, this is what's happening to you, character.
And this is why this is happening to you. And now I'm going to tear you apart. Welcome to hell.
Yeah. you did this to yourself. Yeah, and it was so preachy.
Yeah.
And I hated that he was the psychiatrist.
Yeah, I think that Doug Bradley calls this version of Pinhead in Inferno like Judge Judy Pinhead. I think I read that in an interview at one point.
Judy Pinhead.
Yeah, like you said, he's the psychologist in this movie.
Yeah.
The psychologist is played by James Remar.
And there was a scene with that psychologist in the beginning where he's like they're introducing themselves to each other and they're about to sit down and start talking, and Craig Sheffer says, "Can we do this another time? I'm kind of busy, and I need to reschedule." And it's like, what did you put that scene in for? That was a big waste of time.
I know. Anyway, it all starts with this crime scene, okay? It all starts with a crime scene where they go and they see this guy has been torn to pieces. They see his wallet. His name was Jay Cho. And like you said, this is the point where they give a little bit of characterization to Joseph Thorne. They say, "Oh yeah, I went to high school with this guy. He tried to join the basketball team, and we gave him hell. He was a weird guy. We didn't want him there." So, and he sees that there's a kind of a candlestick, and at the bottom of the candlestick, it's the box. And it's a weird thing I'd like to point out here. The box is different in this film in the sense that some of the panels are like silver and some of the panels are gold. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Yeah, there's like at least
that. No, I didn't.
At least one of the panels is kind of silver. I got a screen cap here, and I'll send it to you guys later.
Yeah, I'll look it up on the notes.
Yeah, I think it might be the lighting, but to me, I got a picture of a screen cap of the film, and it's like silver in one of the panels, and then when it shows it again, it's all completely golden. I don't know if that's a continuity error or what. But so he files away the evidence. The box becomes evidence, and he picks it up, and he plays around with it after he goes out and he spends the night with a prostitute in a motel, which is a really cliche scene, kind of a weird scene because let's be honest. Someone goes out and gets a prostitute from the street and goes to the motel. She's not going to stay the whole night there snuggling next to you for once. And you're not going to be like, kissing her and giving all lovey-dovey. It's going to be like, this is what we're going to do. It's done. I'm out of here. Yeah. But anyway, and in this movie that happens, and he wakes up next morning, goes into the bathroom, solves the box. Then there's a little kind of like a shakiness in the camera, a little bit of light, and we realize, okay, he opened the box, and now it's going to be completely different.
Yeah, and now from this point forward, we're not in the real world anymore.
Well, I noticed last night that even before the box was opened, there was those weird flashes of light when they were in the room together, him and the prostitute. So it lends to the fact that even from the very beginning, we're not seeing a reality. We're seeing something that's happening.
Well, and that's a good point. Yeah. He was trapped in a loop anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We don't really know when did he open the box really for the first time, or I would assume that it all starts already in a loop because there's a finger in the crime scene. That's a subplot
in the first crime scene, and that's before he opens the box.
Yeah, there's a subplot going on, which is for every murder, there's a child's finger that appears, and in the murder of Jay Cho, it's inside a candle.
And when you find out where those fingers come from, it's much dumber than you could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
So is this loop? Did he actually murder Jay Cho? Do you guys get the idea that he was the murderer behind all the murders that are depicted in the movie?
I got kind of a vibe that could be it, because.
But it's all just mental torture anyway. So
right. Because I was wondering what would be the motive besides, here's this kid I used to pick on in school.
Right, and now the police were starting to think that, because you're connected to all these victims, that you must have been the murderer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really smack you in the face with that one at one point in the movie. Like, I'm looking for the engineer. There's no link to the engineer. The only link is to you. You know all these people. But anyway.
And that was another thing that bugged me, is that continual use of the phrase engineer. I mean, I guess kudos for him knowing knowing that the engineer was a thing, a Hellraiser thing.
Yes.
But he didn't use it right.
Right, he did not. And in the Hellraiser film, of course, Engineer became the name that we know, that creature in the tunnel that follows Kirsty.
Yeah.
And he actually shows up in the Hellraiser comics too, the recent ones. Mm-hmm. They really call him Engineer and all that, because I've been reading the comics, the Hellraiser Boom comics, and I noticed that there's the Engineer that shows up, and at one point the female Cenobite tells Kirsty that he's the one who builds things in hell, which is really nice because they're using all that mythology that was developed over the years. They're really using that to the Hellraiser Boom comics now.
And another reason they call him the Engineer in that comic is because he heals himself, so he re-engineers his body if he gets hurt.
Yeah, I saw that last night.
Where was the first appearance of the Engineer? Was he in the Hellbound Heart novel?
Yeah, but he wasn't a monster like that.
Right.
What was he? I forget.
He's a guy with a head that's like a cone of light.
That's right.
Yeah, kind of like, I don't know, kind of the Illuminati, kind of an Illuminati reference, I guess.
The Engineer will appear should the moment merit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he didn't show up until the very end of the novel.
So it seems there's never really been a consistent depiction of this, this title at all.
But in this case, they made the Engineer both the puzzle guardian and Pinhead.
Yeah, in the movie, right.
Hellraiser Inferno.
So what about the faceless character that is actually Thorn himself? Was that supposed to be the Engineer or not?
I think that he was supposed to believe that up until the end, but I don't think that. I think that was really just him with a mask on his face.
That's a good point, because, like you said, so.
Because he engineered his own hell, basically, is what I kind of caught last night watching it.
Yeah.
True. I would say that from what I see from the film, I think the Engineer is supposed to be the faceless guy. But then when he asks Pinhead, "Are you the Engineer?" and he just smiles and says, "That's as good a name as any." And that's when there's a big reveal that, the character James Remar plays has this really cool scene with effects, like the pins start coming out of his face and he turns into Pinhead.
It was done well, but I hate that.
Me too. I don't like
the blue light was just kind of a little bit too much. I don't know.
I don't like Pinhead looking like a regular person and then changing into Pinhead. It's like he's supposed to be a physical thing. He's not supposed to be like a ghost.
He does that in Hellraiser 3.
And he also does it the Epic comic series as well.
I didn't like it in Hellraiser 3 either.
Okay. Well, but anyway, there's interesting characters along the way. We're jumping ahead, but he spends the night with a prostitute. Then the next day he's in his office and he gets a call, and it's Daphne, and she's saying, "I'm still at the hotel. Help me, please help me." And we get this noise and screams and stuff. And he goes there with his character, with his partner, and he goes in and he sees like that the prostitute has been killed, and he's like, "Oh no, now it's." I've been here and they're going to think I did it. So he asks his partner if he can help cover up the evidence. He says, "I didn't do this, but you got to help me. Let's clean up my fingerprints. And, I owe you one." So they do that. And just to make sure that he has like a one up on his partner, he drops his partner's pen there and his pack of cigarettes. And
he kicks it under the bed.
Yeah, and he thinks that, okay, I'm off the hook. Now I'm going to find out who is doing this to me, who's following me and killing people. And that's when he goes to his informant, Bernie, who's like this it's an amazingly over the top character. He's an informant with an ice cream van, and inside the ice cream van, it's all just like the walls are covered in porn.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be this kind of like pedophile guy, and
and a drug dealer as well.
And a drug dealer. So yeah, it's amazing how an informant could be so shady and not get arrested.
And going back to that phone call, for me, when I first saw the movie, that was the scariest part of the whole movie, was that phone call, and she's screaming, and as she's screaming, her voice gets like all gurgly.
Right.
Yeah.
From the blood.
Really well made.
That was a really horrific kind of mental image.
No, it's very disturbing.
Yeah.
And that's what I found is that it kind of harkens back to the way they used to make movies in the old days, where it was all very subtle, and where they didn't need to display so much to let your imagination kind of take over.
Because your imagination can do a better job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I appreciated that. I mean, I think I still did. Even this time, it made me squirm a little bit.
Right. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think the Wire Twins Cenobites are a projection of the prostitution that he was into?
I thought that this time when I watched it. I never thought of that before.
Yeah, me neither.
That's actually a good point.
That she was, that it was kind of a twisted hell version of that prostitute.
Right.
Yeah.
Why there were two of them, but...
Well, there's two of Joseph, so in a sense, he's kind of a duality there. So
This is I don't know which came first. I'm guessing it was the paperback book, but in the cover of the Hellbound Heart, there's a variation of the cover of the Hellbound Heart where there's like this guy and there's like two Cenobites like touching him on his chest.
That's an excellent. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that might have inspired the scene in this film where the Wire Twins are like doing the underskin massage.
I could see that. And his chest was just totally soaked in blood, and he's like, "Okay, get off of me, I'm busy," and he runs away.
I like the Cenobites in this film. I like the Wire Twins. I just don't like Torso. I think Torso looks ridiculous.
It's a little small, I guess. I mean, how is that thing supposed to be scary? Like, he flung his body over the stairs rather than just like running past that, which he could have done.
Right. I guess it's supposed to be like a pet or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I think the Cenobites for this film were a lot better than Hellraiser 3.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and the only thing that I hated turned out to not be a Cenobite bite, because I've forgotten that thing, the fake-looking Chatterer was actually Craig Sheffer's character. And when thinking that was a Cenobite through the movie, I hated it.
Right.
This is the stupidest Cenobite I've ever seen, and there's been some pretty dumb ones.
Well, they had the same black tongue that the Wire Twins had. So it did have some sort of connection to being some sort of Cenobite, I guess. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Pinhead, when he changes from the psychiatrist into Pinhead, he's standing behind a stained glass window, so it's supposed to be all, that adds to the whole preachy. I'm here to tell you about your soul.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so just to recapitulate, the first finger is in the Jay Cho murder scene. The second finger is in Daphne's motel room, a murder scene. And then his informant gets killed because he gets this tape delivered to him in a bar and from a kid. It's like, oh, this is for you, Detective Thorne, and he just runs off. And for some reason, he's in a bar, but nobody cares. He just walks over to the TV. There's a VCR under the TV, just flips it in, watches a violent, gruesome death going on.
There was like a basketball game on before that or something.
Yeah. Somebody would immediately say, hey, buddy, I'm watching that.
Yeah.
But obviously, the tape is his informant being killed by that faceless guy. And we see the third finger being put in the register drawer. Yeah. So when he shows the tape to his superiors, of course, nothing's on the tape. And so that's when he's sent to the psychologist Dr. Paul Gregory, who's played by James Remar. And he happens also to be an Episcopal priest. An interesting bit of trivia is that he's wearing this little pin with a cross. And in the scene where he reveals himself to be Pinhead later on, that little cross pin is facing down, if you check it.
It's
upside down. Yeah, that's an interesting little detail there.
That's funny.
It's like the cross is upside down.
Notice that.
You need
Yeah.
it.
So right, they when they do go into Bernie's van and they find his body there, and they find that his phone had a voice message saying, "Oh, you got to talk to Mr. Permaji." So that's when they go to this strange casino where Thorne meets this cowboy that looks out of Mulholland Drive.
I fell asleep in that part this time.
Cowboy, yeah.
You're spot on with the Mulholland Drive connection. That's exactly where this all.
I woke up and I'm like, "What's with the cowboys?"
I know, it's like so weird. They go to this casino. It's like a casino where everybody's dressed like cowboys.
And the guy's like standing there with his hand hovering over his 6-shooter. It's like, what?
Well, what I caught last night when I watched, I was thinking this is like some sort of nether connection between hell and earth. Because they're out when he goes out the back door to chase the faceless image of himself, he encounters the Cenobites in the forest or whatever.
Yeah.
So
why did that cowboy dude and his friends beat up Craig Sheffer?
I think if I interpret it as them being connected to the Cenobites, I think they're just there to add to his misery and stuff. And
actually.
Go ahead.
I have something to say. It's like I think that's probably the worst scene in any Hellraiser film ever. It's when the Kung Fu cowboys show up, and interestingly enough, nobody likes it. Even the director publicly apologized for it.
Right, right.
In the interview for the Hellbound Web. Mark Adams asks him any regrets, and then Scott Derrickson goes on to say, "Yeah, the karate kicking cowboys in Inferno. Even my friends who love the film give me shit about that. It was the only thing about the movie that Bob Weinstein didn't like. Oh well, live and learn." So it's like I constantly watching that scene, I go like, why? Why would someone put this in? It's like there's no point to this.
Yeah.
It's like Asian Kung Fu cowboys. I'm going to let that sink in for a bit.
Well, it's like the scene where we almost meet the psychiatrist, and then it's like, no, you know what? I don't have time to meet you right now.
Yeah, it's just weird. But the psychiatrist's role in this is just to explain who the Cenobites are and what happens when someone opens the box, because he keeps going over that. Yeah. And going back to what Max asked us a while ago, did we think that he killed Jay Cho? He does mention these detectives that have problems, and he mentions like the story of this one detective, and he opened this box, and then strange things started happening, and he killed himself, committed suicide. Why not something that would, why not have Craig Sheffer's character in real life like get crazy over this and kill those people that show up dead around him? Why?
And if this is all like a big mental torture, then Jay Cho would show up because he's somebody that he tortured, in high school.
Sure,
right.
That's actually when the victim starts showing up in his like mental breakdown near the end of the movie. The only person who doesn't really show up is Jay Cho. I don't know why it doesn't show up, but I guess there is no connection to his death and Joseph Thorne after all. But anyway, so he goes to this casino, Mr. Permaji. Mm-hmm. He gets beat up by Kung Fu cowboys, and then his partner is trying to say, "Well, I'm going to take you to the hospital." "Don't take me to the hospital. Take me back to the squad." And then he knocks on the psychologist's door in the middle of the night, and he's there in his office. Why? I don't know. It's like, why would Paul Gregory be in his office late at night, and why would he open the door to Thorne? It's just, of course, at this point, reality is breaking down, and we know that this is some weird reality going on.
It also, in a way, sort of feels like now we're in a waste of time. Do you get that feeling once you realize that this isn't their real life, but they think it is? That it makes you feel impatient, like we're wasting time.
Yeah, you got to have a real, talent at directing a movie like this, because Jacob's Ladder, I think, is like flawless with that type of story.
It's perfect, and you learn things along with the character in Jacob's Ladder.
Right.
Instead of like, hey, I figured this out a long time ago. Would you just get to the end, please?
Right. Then there's the whole thing where he goes home to his wife after he talks to Paul Gregory. He goes there. Of course, again, it's the cardboard wife and daughter. Mm-hmm. And there's one moment when he's like going to touch his wife's face, and that's like one of the signs that he might be dead after all, because the hand that he's going to touch his wife's face with is a dead man's hand, like with black nails and white. Mm-hmm. And it's like, he sees this thing. He's going like, whoa, what's going on? And then of course there's this kind of hallucination moment where his wife gets a call and she says, "Oh, it's your mother. She says she got to visit some kind of engineer." Yeah. And he goes like, "Oh no, the engineer is, visiting my mom. I got to see my mom because, Yeah,
so he just grabs his coat and runs off.
Yeah. And then of course there's a very dreamlike scene where he goes to this old folks home or this hospital or whatever. And he goes there and he sees his parents, and we find out that he's not a very good son either, apart from not being a good husband or a good father.
He's never been there before.
He's never been there. Like the nurse says, "I didn't even know the Thorns had a son."
Yeah.
And of course, this is all like a dream, because he wakes up and the wife gets the call again and say, "Oh, it's your mother. She's visited by some kind of engineer." Yeah. And he jumps up, goes over there, and sure enough, his parents are not there. And the bed where they're supposed to be is all bloody, and that's where he finds like 2 more fingers. It's fingers like
you can't have a Hellraiser movie without a bloody mattress.
Yeah. Oh, true.
Yeah. Right.
I really like the moment where in the dream scene where he's in the hallway and there's this old guy in a straitjacket in a wheelchair, mm-hmm. and he's going past him, and you look at his face. His face is all stretched out with like chains, and he's an old guy, but it giggles like a child.
I like the nurses that were closing in behind him when he sees the old man there in the wheelchair as well. I thought that was.
They go past him and they say, "Such a nice little boy."
Right.
I keep wanting to say things, and then I realize that the thing that I saw was in Hellraiser 6, not 5. There's so much. Right. They're so similar.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting bit of trivia. If you go on Gary J. Tunnicliffe's website, Gary J. Tunnicliffe is the guy who made special effects for 2 Hours in the Dark, who made all this stuff, of course. He has a picture of the old guy with the chains in his face and the stretched out grin, and says, "This guy smelled of BO." I don't know why he would say that, but it's a caption on the picture, and his website is like this. I really had a hard time putting makeup on this guy because he really smelled like BO.
He could have left that out, probably.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, that's nice of you, Gary J. Tunnicliffe.
Yeah. Well, how long? He must have been working on him for over a half hour at least, so that might have been somewhat torturous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is in his website if you guys go there and visit it. So that's Fingers 4 and 5, and of course he leaves. He meets Tony Nanonan outside the hospital, and he says, we gotta go. We gotta find the engineer. My parents are gone. My parents are missing, and we gotta find the connection. And that's when Tony says, "You're the connection. You're the only person who knows all these people." And they fight. He leaves because he had in the box with the fingers at his parents' room, there was a note with an address. So he leaves to check out that address, walks up to the room, which kind of looks like Frank's damp room. There's like windows, and the windows are covered with newspaper and stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a telescope in the room, and he looks out. Of course, for some reason, he sees his partner across the street getting killed.
Yeah.
And now this is really turning into like, okay, well, how did his partner get there, and why is he there? Why is he getting killed? It's the faceless guy is killing him. And of course, there's Finger 6. He goes home after this to find his wife and daughter frozen in a torture pillar.
Yeah.
And there's Paul Gregory, the psychologist, is there, and like I said, his cross is upside down, and that's when
he touches his daughter's arm and it breaks off.
Yeah, it's so literal. It's like, it's snowing inside the living room and they're frozen. They're like,
what was the significance of it being like a winter scene, snow?
I think because he was cold to them, because he ignored them. Yeah,
he actually says that. He says it's supposed to mean like his cold emotional state towards them. They nobody could hear them. there were hours and hours. It takes hours to die from exposure, hours where you weren't home. And it's like, you were a bad family man. And then, of course, he touches his daughter, and they all crumble apart like crystals, and it's like...
and there was one point in the movie where somebody said, like, oh, you do magic tricks. Your daughter must love that. And he's like, my daughter? Oh, I never really thought of doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's like... I do them for myself.
Which is kind of, like, strange because, you know, he knows how it's done, so I don't think how he could entertain himself with a magic trick when he knows that, okay, I'm just going to put this right back into my sleeve. Oh, look at that, it disappeared.
How did I do that?
Yeah, so, of course, there's fingers 7 and 8, which signify his wife and his daughter, and that's when we get that reveal that the engineer is supposed to be Pinhead, I think.
Yeah. Well, and then when Pinhead says that, oh, that's as good a name as any, it's sort of this, like, you know, in so many movies and things, the devil's always like, oh, I go by so many names.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
It kind of makes you think that in this movie, he's supposed to be Satan.
Yeah, I could see something like that, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised because Scott Derrickson is really he really thinks that a person's religion should have a role in his movies, which I'm fine with that. I just wish he didn't use that belief to kind of distort a little bit and pass a message that it's not supposed to be Hellraiser.
Yeah, he subverted the Hellraiser mythology.
A little bit, to some extent. He used it to say that, you know, okay, I understand he was trying to convey some values like family, being loyal, is like trying to... But he ended up with a protagonist who's not someone the audience can relate to. We don't really feel much of a connection to Joseph Thorne.
Yeah.
He's not just he's not a likable character at all. And, you know, never in any moment do we buy that, oh, poor guy, he's, you know, why is this happening to him? It's like, more like, why is this happening to those poor people around him? It's like, I don't care about Joseph Thorne. I just care about the victims that are being killed around him.
When I was in college, I did a paper on movies where a character gets captured and crucified, and then after they're crucified, they suddenly become super powerful and you know, are invincible.
Mm-hmm.
And like Conan the Barbarian, Albert Pune movies like Sword and the Sorcerer and Cyborg.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, the obvious Christian implication of that.
Sure, yeah. I completely forgot about that cyborg scene. That's pretty cool. I got to watch that movie sometime again. So this is when the movie goes full on into dreamlike, hellish territory, which has like Pinhead show up, and there's this really cheesy scene where we see like a little kid sitting in a kind of a chair, and it just like spins into the screen, like just like. It's cheesy. That effect is so cheesy.
And
of course,
and the kid's fingers are all cut off.
Yes, and then it's like 7, 8. There's 2 fingers left,
right?
And then he says, you know, just before that happens, he does get a message from Pinhead saying, you know, when he says, "I'm not the killer, you got to go home." That's when he goes from the living room where his daughter and wife were frozen, and he goes through a closet into his childhood bedroom. And that's when he sees, like, you know, himself as a kid and his parents taking care of him. And he says, "Oh, you're such a good kid." And all of a sudden, I like the scene where everything kind of decays. Everything, like the walls become like dark, and there's a fruit bowl that becomes all rotten and moldy.
And that's a callback to Hellraiser 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is nice. That you know, it's like, hey, thanks for finally acknowledging.
I found that in both movies, and also in Hellseeker, there was a lot of you know, homages to the first 2 movies, or at least the first movie.
Sure. So, of course, his parents are there, but his parents also get old, and they get, like, monstrous, like, they don't have eyes, they fight him. And basically it just turns into a shooting gallery.
He shoots his parents with a shotgun.
Yeah, he shoots his parents with a shotgun. Then, of course, his partner shows up. He shoots him too. Bernie shows up. Well, I'm not your whipping boy, and he boom shoots him.
Yeah.
And that's when he opens a door. And I would really love to have this part be like opening the door and finding out the labyrinth. That would have been amazing. That was a wasted opportunity there. I mean, but he just kind of falls into himself, and he. Next scene is all darkness, and there was like Pinhead shows up, there's a little kid in the chair, and there's a faceless guy that shows up. And that's when we get the whole speech from Pinhead saying like, oh, you're the king of your own world, your actions, hurt everyone around you, your
flesh is killing your spirit.
And that is said like twice in the space of like 10 seconds, like your flesh consumed your spirits. And then the faceless guy goes over to the little kid and cuts another finger. And Pinhead says again, your flesh is killing your spirits. I'm like, yes, I know. You just said that like 10 seconds ago. And so basically the ninth finger is supposed to be his spirit. And then one more finger.
The kid is his spirit, and the Cenobite thing is his flesh.
Right.
You can go for that literal thing, sure, yeah. And then he says, one more finger to go, one more death. And that's when he's all chained up, and finally, the guy pulls him apart and is like, dun, dun, dun. Yeah. So,
but then he wakes up again.
Yeah, he wakes up, and that's, I think the movie should have ended there. It's like when Pinhead says, welcome to hell, and he goes,
no!
Yeah. That wasn't very good.
If he had finished the movie there, if he had ended it there, I would have said, okay, it's actually not bad. But then he goes through the thing where, okay, he wakes up, he's in his office. Oh, wait, no, he's next to the box in the bathroom, back in the motel where he was with Daphne. And, he wakes up, gets the box, goes to his office, gets a phone call. It's Daphne again. And it's like, oh no, this is all happening again. And his partner's like, Joe, what are you doing? And it's like he gets his gun, sticks it in his mouth, boom.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up next to the box again. And I'm going like, seriously? They're going to go through this again?
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
And if, of course, we're just going through the movie now, and that's when he finally gets up, walks into his childhood room, sits down, and goes like, no.
Yeah. And I like Craig Sheffer. I mean, I got to meet him, and he was a pretty cool guy. And I asked him if he was cast in Hellraiser Inferno because of his being in a previous Clive Barker movie, and he said no. He just went to an audition, and he got the part.
Oh, cool. I think that people complain a bit about, at least in the Hellbound Web and other forums that I've been. People used to complain a bit about Craig Sheffer's overacting a bit in this movie, but I think it's not so much his fault. It's also like the script that he was given. Like
his character was all over the place. I mean, it was, how did he have anything to hang on to? Right.
I think that's also a lot of responsibility for that is the script. And someone mentioned that Craig Sheffer was in a movie with bees on a plane. I'm trying to figure out what was that movie. Yes, he was in a. Yes, he did some pretty.
Is that a knockoff of Snakes on a Plane?
No, I'm trying to hang on. I think this was actually mentioned by our friend David in a discussion online. He said he does the same face he does in this movie where he's fighting bees on a plane. I think it's something called something virus. Hang on. Oh. Flying virus?
Is that called Bees on a Plane?
No. I'm tired of these melon farming bees on this melon farming plane. Sheffer virus. I'm trying to figure out the name of that because I want to watch this film. It's called Flying Virus.
You guys, of course, seen River Runs Through It with Craig Sheffer and Brad Pitt. Yeah, I really liked his acting in that movie, but it's been hard to find a movie. And of course, I liked Nightbreed, but even in Nightbreed, it was a different type of acting job for him.
Yeah.
Can you tell me again the name of that film you're talking?
Runs Through It.
A River Runs Through It.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that.
I think it had Robert Redford in it, right?
Yeah. I can't remember who it had. Who's the guy from Aliens? From the first Alien movie.
Tom Skerritt.
Yeah, he played like a minister, and he had two sons, and one was Craig Sheffer, who was the good son, and then he had Brad Pitt, who was the bad son. And so it's kind of this it's different. I'd like to rewatch it again actually because it's a great Schaefer movie as far as his acting.
All right. Yeah, this Flying Virus film that I was talking about has like Rutger Hauer and his Craig Schaefer's wife at the time, Gabrielle Anwar. She was in that show like Burn Notice. Anyway, so I only have this film Hellraiser Inferno. I have it in like VHS. I never got a DVD for it.
I got a Blu-ray that has 4 movies on it, and they mixed up all the covers.
Yeah, I saw that. You posted that on Facebook. It's got like Angelique for like Inferno.
Yeah.
It's got the twins from Bloodline for like Hellseeker. It's weird.
Weird.
Yeah, they just didn't give a rip. It's like just whatever.
But I don't recommend this film much. Like if you've never seen a Hellraiser film, stay away from it. If you've seen a Hellraiser film, only if you're a hardcore fan. I mean,
if you're a completist. There was a time when I said I'm only going to buy Hellraiser 1 and 2, and the rest of them I'll just rent them when they come out because but I've sort of, because of this podcast, I've broken down and bought them all. But I did get them in a bargain bin.
For me, this movie is probably my third favorite in the series after 2, because I really didn't like 3 that much. And I mean, all the movies, I appreciate them for what they're, but after seeing Hellseeker today, I used to hate Hellseeker. I really like Hellseeker now compared. So
we can go if you're okay. We can go into Hellseeker now.
Yeah,
okay, I would just like to say one little thing about Hellraiser Inferno to complete, which is I think that in Hellraiser Inferno, they try to plaster this sin and punishment for sin idea on Pinhead, which I disagree vehemently, because I don't think that's what it was supposed to be about in the first place. Like it's like pain and pleasure indivisible, pursuit of exploring experience to the fullest until you actually become more than human.
And it's like, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. And this one is more like hell and damnation. It's like a more I would say like almost Catholic approach to sin. Like if you're going to be bad, then you're going to get punished for it. It's just going to be pain, and it completely negates all the pleasure side of Hellraiser.
But in the original, even the novella and the first movie, there are these kind of hints about Frank getting his just desserts. So in a sense, there is a connection somewhat between. It's done much better. Clive did it much better than Derrickson, obviously, because it's open to interpretation and it's more subtle than that. But there is this idea that Frank is being punished somewhat.
But Kirsty has to bargain her way out of it. Just all she did was open the box.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean with Frank. Also, at the same time, I'm not sure if he's being punished for escaping or after the fact.
That's kind of how I took it. Is that he's being punished for escaping.
Right, but there's also this tale about curiosity killing the cat. There's this thing about desire that for the first 2 movies where it's desire.
Definitely.
Sure, like the pursuit of hedonism will take you in a direction sometimes you may not want to go.
Yeah.
But once you cross that line, there's no coming back.
Right.
That's what I see. So yeah, I guess we can go into Hellseeker if you guys are fine with it.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
So this was the next year in 2001, and it was directed by Rick Boda. And like we said earlier, he did this one, he did Deader, and he did Hellworld. So he's directed the most Hellraiser movies out of anybody.
Yeah, true. And I think this was written by Carl Dupre. I'm not sure. Who also wrote Deader and Hellworld, I think.
And the weird, this was written. I think in an interview with Doug Bradley, he had said that this was written with a character named Kirsty, but she wasn't supposed to be Kirsty Cotton.
No, there's a first draft of the script available. Where there's the opening scene is kind of weird. I don't think how this would have been a movie at any point, because the first scene is like this guy Trevor is taking his wife Kirsty, who's pregnant, and she's having contractions, and he's driving her to the hospital, and they're playing this mathematical game. Like Kirsty asks him, quick, what's the square root of like 427? And and before he answers, she gives him a blowjob while he's driving in the middle of a contraction. And I'm like, what would possess someone to write this into a script?
Oh, that was just in the first draft, though.
Yeah, I know. But why would someone write this scene? It's weird. It's awkward. I don't know. I don't understand. So
I don't think she'd be physically capable of bending over enough.
I know. It's weird. It's stupid. It's stupid. And this script is actually available on the Hellbound web. If you go there on the library, you can read the first draft. That's like, I don't know. And then they kind of thought, oh, we've got a Kirsty character. Why not make her Kirsty Cotton?
Well, and I think that was Doug Bradley's suggestion. He said, hey, you're already calling her Kirsty. This is going to mess everybody up because they're going to say, what's going on? Why is she called Kirsty? So why not make her the actual Kirsty? And so they did like a rewrite and hired
Ashley Lawrence.
Ashley Lawrence, yeah.
Yeah. So I got to say something here, which is, first of all, I like this movie visually better than I liked Inferno. I don't know. I guess
this time around, I did too.
Inferno has this kind of like TV movie kind of quality to it in some places. And Hellseeker is really good looking, and it's got a good actor. Like Dean Winters is a good actor in my book. Not that I'm dissing like Craig Schaefer, but Dean Winters is a pretty good actor, and
he's the beeper king on what is that? The Liz Lemon's boyfriend. Yeah,
and he's also like Mayhem on the Allstate whatever insurance company.
Right.
Yeah. Send a check, Allstate. And he was also in that TV show Oz, the prison TV show. Yeah. I just got to say something here, which is, even though the movie is visually very interesting and very good looking, Trevor and Kirsty live in a horrible apartment.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. It looks like a man cave. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's no female touch at all there.
I thought it looked like a hotel room.
It's just like the walls are danky and musty, and there's pipes coming out of the walls, and there's like
dishes in the sink.
Yeah, you can tell it's just a slum. It's just a slum. So I was like, okay, they kind of hint that Kirsty had money that was left from her father and uncle estate or something.
Yeah, they said her father and Uncle Frank in the...
Yeah, they do mention that. They're trying to get, us to, more story behind Kirsty Cotton and all that.
Yeah.
But, I just thought that the apartment looks terrible.
And there's a weird thing here where it's like, we learn later on that they were like fighting and at each other's throats, but in all of his memories, they're all happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then as the movie progresses, he kind of starts getting flashbacks that, okay, Kirsty's laughing, but then after she laughs, she gets really serious and she gets like, we're going to marriage counseling. And the story starts piecing itself a little more together.
Yeah.
I really like the brain surgery scene where he it's basically a total tribute to Hellbound and the Chenard scene.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, because what happens is that the film opens with like Dean Winters and Ashley Lawrence in a car, and they're laughing, and there's something not right with their interaction, and all of a sudden, there's an accident. And the car goes off a bridge and falls into a river, and supposedly he comes out of the car, but Ashley Lawrence is stuck in the car, and she sinks with the car, and then he passes out. He wakes up in the hospital.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know where his wife is at this point.
By then, you already know if you followed the last movie that he's in hell. It's been like 15 minutes into the film, and you already know you're going to be watching the next hour and a half of
trying to figure out where he is when we already know the answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point. There's also another faceless guy in this film that follows the protagonist.
Yeah.
He even goes to the window and looks through the window, just like in Inferno, to see the faceless guy across the way. So
yeah, it's amazing to me that these are different directors because and writers because the films are so similar to each other.
Oh yeah.
Again, the Jacob's Ladder references. And all
right. Yeah, especially particularly with the brain surgery scene where he's locked in. It's very much like the Jacob's Ladder scene.
Yeah.
Did you guys have this kind of like vibe that, okay, he wakes up, there's this doctor, this female doctor, and she's blonde, she's really good looking, she really cares for him. It's almost like an angelic figure in the film.
Yeah, like the chiropractor in Jacob's Ladder.
Exactly.
And the acupuncturist in the last movie was supposed to be kind of like that too.
Right.
When I watched this film,
sits there and listens to him and is nice and, helpful when everything else is falling apart around them. Right.
When I watched this film for the first time, I actually thought to myself, can it be that in this movie we're going to have Cenobites and we're also going to have an angelic counterpart? But then, no, they don't really do that.
And it's also she's familiar with him when we've never met her before. Like right at the start, she knows his name and she's talking to him, and you're thinking, okay, is he one of those people that she slept with, or that he slept with, and he'd forgotten or whatever?
I think that happens because if you remember, the first time he comes out of the hospital, like he's asking, "Hey, doctor, where's Kirsty? Where's my wife?" Yeah. And nobody's answering him. And then he leaves and he's talking to this police inspector, and he says, like, "Why don't we go back to the scene of the accident and go through, bit by bit?" And he said, "Oh, we did that ago, like." We did that a month ago, don't you remember? And we're thinking like, oh, then he's getting like these blackouts and amnesia.
Yeah. So she probably knows him, and maybe he doesn't remember her.
Right. So he probably has been there a few times because we get the feeling that he's there because he's getting these headaches. Of course. He has this amnesia, and she's like, "How are the headaches?"
Like none of this is actually happening.
Right. So. I love that black inspector. I love that guy. He's such a good actor in this film.
Yeah,
I liked him up until the thing happened with the jerky inspector head coming out of the back of his head.
Oh, that's so hilarious.
Yeah.
That is. I don't know. I kind of like that character. It was like good cop, bad cop,
right?
In the same body. It's like wow.
Again, that was another great reference to the Epic series. It seemed very much like one of the stories that you'd read in the Epic series for me. So,
true.
There's a scene where he throws up an eel, and it looks really, really similar to the scene in Poltergeist 2, where he threw up this big old blobby, long creature that was kind of like an eel in that movie too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was H.R. Giger concept art that came from.
Oh, okay. That's a really weird moment in the movie while we're watching it for the first time. It's like, what the hell is going on? It's like a very mind melt moment.
Yeah.
And then it all comes through in the end. You really understand why that happened there. Because,
you do. And then, he blacks out and wakes up in places and you never really know which things are dreams and which things are, because it's all a dream, so it doesn't matter, but you don't know which ones are happening in reality and which things are not.
Right.
And it turns out none of it, but
I'm going to sum up
and wakes up on the bus and...
Yeah, I'm going to sum up just the synopsis of the film, just to keep it in structure, is that, okay, so he's trying to piece what happened in the accident. And, he keeps getting these flashbacks, these headaches. All of a sudden, he finds himself in places that, were in the past. So what happened was that basically Kirsty, one night, Trevor and Kirsty were, actually, he was having problems, and he was trying to kill his wife to get the money, in cahoots with his friend Brett from work, which is,
he's like some kind of an accountant or something.
Yeah. And, okay, so Kirsty has money, and they want to get that money, and he's also, cheating on her with, 3 different women, including his boss, who's called Gwen. And so what he did was he tried to find a way to – he meets this puzzle guardian.
Played by Doug Bradley.
Exactly, played by Doug Bradley. And then this is the film where they finally did something new with the box, right, Max?
Yeah, right, exactly. The orb.
The orb, right, the puzzle orb, which is a really nice moment in the film. This guy
I really hated the transition, though, from the orb to the box. It seemed really kind of cheap. Just like they turned off the camera and then replaced the orb with just really...
Yeah,
I thought they could. I thought they could did a little bit more there.
We've all done movie special effects like that.
Right.
He pushes the orb on the table, and the orb is rolling, and all of a sudden it goes like chuk 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 chuk, and it turns into a box. And there's a lot of black in there, so it's easy to do the transition.
Yeah.
I like the moment where he's visiting that puzzle guardian, and he says, like, I can see into your soul. It's like a really good introduction for this weird-looking character with, like, a milky white-blue eye and a long hair, which we know Duck Bradley's bald.
Yeah.
So, he says he can solve his problems if the price is right, and he pays the money. It's like a very Hellraiser 1 moment there. He pays the money. He's got, like, a bunch of money. He gives him, like, the box. And he flashbacks to another moment where he's with Kirsty, and he shows her the box. Hey, look what I got. And she's going, oh, my God, where'd you get that? It's like, oh.
I trusted you.
Yeah, I trusted you. Yeah. And he goes like, go ahead and open it. And she's like, do you really want me to do this? And like looks at her and is like, okay, I'm going to open it. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why would you open the box? You know exactly what it's going to release.
Yeah, she should have hit him in the head with it.
Right.
Yeah, like, hit him over the face with it.
Well,
like,
there's a scene at the end where he's talking to Pinhead and he says, like, I made a deal with him. Like, somehow he had made a deal with Pinhead to get Kirsty to open the box so that it's weird. You know,
Yeah.
And that was his new plan instead of doing the suicide thing.
You know, Jonathan Q actually asked Ashley a question at this Monster Mania convention back in, I can't remember when it was, several years ago, and asked her what she thought about it, and she said basically she wanted just to interpret the whole thing as a dream that
Yeah,
I remember
we put that on our podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've heard her say that in interviews before, or like on audio commentaries for other Hellraiser movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she just doesn't. I mean, when you watch the movie, that's not exactly correct.
No,
right.
It's just like an answer that she came up with to tell the fans that go like, hey, why does Kirsty open the box in this film? She goes like, it's a dream.
Well, why is Kirsty a mass murderer?
Right. Which, for me, I like the projection of Kirsty as displayed in the Boom comics more than I do in this film. Because I would see her taking her experiences with the labyrinth and everything, to another level. Maybe she would have been on, talking at colleges or something about it. I don't know. I'm saying something different than what I see in this movie. But
yeah.
I agree.
She could have just left Trevor. I mean, why not do that instead of...
Yeah, she could have taken the box and put it somewhere safe. When you think about it too much, it kind of falls apart. What are the motivations and what was the plan supposed to be? And it's like...
She's killing Trevor, not only him, but these 4 other people that really all they did was, maybe they knew he was married, maybe some of them didn't.
Well, so... She opens the box, and of course she sees the Cenobites. Pinhead shows up and says, "Oh, Kirsty," and she's like, "Wait," and he goes like, "Oh, we don't want to bargain with you." And it's like, "What if I give you like 5 souls in exchange for mine?" And it's like, interesting. After he just said,
it was definitely an homage to Hellraiser 1 and 2 with her bargaining with the Cenobites, but then all of a sudden it's like, what?
Yeah. But it's more like Pinhead was like, finally we got you, and we don't want bargains. And she says, I'll give you 5 souls. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Seemed like...
you'd think that they would just say, no. You tricked us before.
We want you.
Yeah.
So she promises him 5 souls. Of course, the 5 souls are going to be Sage, who's the acupuncturist that was, Trevor was like cheating on Kirsty with her, and he was also cheating on Kirsty with one of his neighbors, Tawny.
Yeah.
And there's another woman, Gwen, his boss. So, and there's Brett, who was involved in the conspiracy to kill Kirsty and take money from her. And that's like 4 people. Of course, the 5th person was Trevor.
Yeah.
So what she did was she killed these women. She killed Brett and tried to pin that on Trevor. And then ultimately, when they're driving one day, she just takes a gun and shoots Trevor in the head. And
which is different from his memory of it. So in order, in order to piece together this life that he's trying to remember, they sort of lie to us to try to, instead of making it vague or making it interesting, it's just like, well, this is how he remembers it, and it's wrong. And, I don't know, that bugs me.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we get this thing where Trevor keeps getting meeting with the inspector, and Kirsty's body was never found from the accident he was in, and he remembers the doors being closed, but then the doors in the car were open when the car was taken out of the river.
Yeah.
So we get this thing like, okay, something's not right, and then of course all the hallucinations that he's having, the eel that comes out of his mouth, the one moment he's like, his hot neighbor is coming over to his house to, kiss him and, jump on him. And all of a sudden she turns into Cenobites. And I also like the Cenobites in this film.
And Pinhead pulling the pin out of his own head and jamming it through his neck.
I really like that moment when he's at Sage's office and she's like giving him an acupuncture and a massage thing to release him from his headaches. And we see this diagram of the human body and like the nerve endings, and all of a sudden it stretches out, and it's Pinhead popping through that thing, walking into the room. Yeah. I really like that moment. That's really cool.
Yeah, I totally had forgotten about that from my first viewing, so it was I appreciate it this time around.
Yeah. I felt like this was one of the stronger of these later sequels. I mean, and I used to always say that every Hellraiser movie is like half as good as the one before it. But I think I would change that in this case. I think I like this one better than Inferno.
Yeah, so there's some cool moments in this film, like that moment with the Pinhead showing up from the acupuncture thing, like the brain surgery scene, where you have the doctor like sticking a pin on his head.
It's so real that cutting out that little section of skull and the little viscera kind of like sliding away as the saw is cutting it and stuff.
Oh yeah, that was cool. I also like the doctor and nurse, how old and kind of decrepit they looked, while they're doing all that.
I really like that nurse, the way she looked, and she also shows up in one of the bus sequences. She's like an old lady knitting. And
is that the same woman?
Yeah,
I think so. I think it was. And I like a lot of moments in this film. I think the film in a whole is a little confusing.
Yeah.
I like the ending of the movie when he's called in because they found Kirsty's body. They say, "Oh, we found your wife's body. Come over to the station." And he goes over to the station, and they start taking him down. And of course, we see things going on in the station that shows us that's not a normal police station. Like,
they're electrifying somebody in one room.
Yeah, and they're beating someone bloody with a baton, and then they just keep going down and down and down, and we see these weird things. We pass by a cell where there's a dead guy with a skin face.
Yeah.
And ultimately he gets to the morgue. I really like the set decoration in this scene. And of course, the walls start crumbling. We start seeing the light coming through the little boards and all that, and then Pinhead shows up to explain that he's dead, why this is happening to him, and he uncovers the sheet. We discover it's Trevor. He's got a hole in his head, and he's dead on the table, and everything comes apart, and I like the twist. I like the end twist. I like the ending twist when we finally see that Kirsty has a blanket over her body. There was a big police scene going on. They're taking the car out of the water, and Trevor's dead. The eel was trapped inside his body because he got there inside the river.
Right, and all of these people from his life are actually like all the forensic team that are sort of gathered around his corpse on the river side.
True, even the doctor. She's the one closing the body bag, right? I think.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Trevor, and So I like that. And then the moment where the inspector turns to Kirsty and says, "Oh, here's something that we took, but you can keep it." And it's like it's the box.
Yeah.
And she looks at the box, looks at the guy, and she's like, "Let me hold on to this really, safely." And it turns out that, of course, yes, she did promise those 5 souls to Pinhead, and she fulfilled her bargain.
Yeah.
That's it's a good story. I just wish it wasn't so confusing. It didn't have so many hallucination moments.
Some of the notes that I made, like one of them is when he's ringing the doorbell for the to get into the acupuncturist office. Mm-hmm. It starts ringing way before his finger hits the button.
Oh. Also, the place where he works is a company called Cubic Root.
Mm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
nice touch.
I don't know.
Yeah,
could be like Cubic Root, like a way to go, and box. I don't know. Yeah. The box is a way to go in a route somewhere else.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just.
And I don't like that Amnesia Trevor is so much more of a better person than the Trevor that was in the past. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I mean, it's a trope that gets used a lot in movies, but it's also kind of like a practical joke on the audience. It's like, hey, you've been identifying with this guy? Well, too bad he's a jerk.
Yeah. I like the Cenobites. I like Bound. Bound is this Cenobite with like a blindfold tied really tightly on, like a leather strap tied around his eyes, another one tied around his mouth. And I like that when Tawny's kissing Trevor, she turns into a Cenobite that straps this thing around his mouth.
Yeah, and then tightens it on over into his
Mm-hmm. It's got this piston on it, and then she pushes that piston all the way in. It's like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, crazy. And then what's the name of that Cenobite that like his eyes are really buggy?
Surgeon.
Surgeon? Yeah,
Are you talking about the Surgeon?
I think he has like, he's kind of like that mask.
He's got like one of those dentist things they put in the mouth, and then he's got like metal clamps pushing down on his eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that one too.
I like that one. And Stitch.
They did a nice job on the Cenobites in this movie.
Yeah, and Stitch is a character that's got like her face skin is like pulled in a zigzag shape, and it's like stapled. Oh. So we see like a big zigzag stretched out folds of skin around her face. It's really I like that a lot.
It was nice to see that the McFarlane figure? No, not McFarlane. The NECA figures. NECA? For all these Cenobites in this movie, Bound and Stitch.
They did those?
Yeah, they did Surgeon, Bound, Stitch, and of course the Wire Twins from Inferno.
Yeah, there's a little special set, which was the two Wire Twins in torso. That I always wanted to get that. There's a blood-spattered version that was more rare. Bound changes in the next few films. In one movie, it's like a guy, then it's like a woman. Mm-hmm. Also the same for Stitch, I think.
Kind of like the way the Chatterer changes all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like in Hellworld,
like that image, but they want to change it around. And
like in Hellworld, we in the final scene with Lance Henriksen, we see Pinhead show up with Chatterer and a male version of Bound.
Right.
This movie, Bound, is a really fat woman. So.
They're only shown like really brief moments in time, so you don't really get a good look at them unless you freeze the screen.
Which is kind of like how I think it should be sometimes, because it makes it more powerful.
Well, they're not doing one-liners at the characters like in Hellraiser 3.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I enjoy this film. I just wish it wasn't so confusing. Probably for me, it's probably like the next in line that I like of the sequels, apart from Hellraiser 1, 2, and 3. Well, it's kind of like at the same level with Bloodline for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I like the first 4 movies. They stand like my favorite Hellraiser films. And then there's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't even count 9 sometimes. I'm like, I try to block out from my mind that it exists. So like, okay.
You're talking about Hellworld, right? Or you were talking about Revelations, right?
Yeah.
You can pick out things in every movie that are kind of interesting or kind of cool. But most of the sequels, the entire movie doesn't stand up. But you can pick out some interesting things in them.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But Revelations, I don't think that there's one thing in there that's good.
Yeah.
I think I like Revelations more than I did Hellworld. I really hated Hellworld.
I know that's a debate.
Yeah.
I think I have to go the other way.
Right.
That's a good point. I think one of the only we'll get to this later, but the only redeeming quality for me in Hellworld is like Lance Henriksen is in it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the only thing I like about the film, because story-wise, it's just like there's nothing there that I like.
It's kind of like it's kind of a forgettable, like, you know, like the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. I can't remember one single thing from that movie.
Right.
I like the sets from Hellworld. I like the house. I like the kind of the museum, the museum that Lance Henriksen shows them. Mm-hmm. All that stuff. Oh, yeah. The sets with the basement of the house. I like all that stuff. I really like the visual and the sets. It's just the story I really have a problem with.
Yeah, the story is awful.
Yeah.
I just hate the whole teen thing, you know, just, I don't know. It just seems so...
Well, but if you look at Revelations, the children are the same age as their parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess they just got a bunch of actors. They didn't really cast them.
You're going to be the father, and you're going to be the son. Okay.
Right.
I in Hellworld, I like the party. I wish I could go to one of those parties. Hellraiser party, yeah. Everybody dance. So that's kind of cool. When Lance Henriksen says, "Hello, Hellraisers," I'm like, yeah, I would like to go to a party like that. With a big rotating like cube in the center of the room, and like everybody's like a Hellraiser nerd.
It's also kind of interesting that that there was a Hellraiser video game that was like so popular, and you know, in real life, no Hellraiser video game has really even gotten off the ground.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a lot to discuss when we have like 7 and 8, which is going to like next episode. But Hellworld has some good things and some really bad things.
Do we want to try to do 7, 8, and 9? Probably not. I think there's too much to talk about with like Deader. Deader is such a strange movie. There's probably a lot to say about it.
You're going to make me watch 9 all the way through this time?
Yes. I was punching my chair all the way through 9.
Oh boy. Anyway, so yeah, Hellseeker. I enjoy this one more than Inferno.
Yeah.
I like the character.
It's nice to see Ashley Lawrence in it too.
It's great. Yeah, it was great to see Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty.
Although it's also problematic because she's not that character isn't right.
Yeah, I think there's so much you could do with her character, and I just thought it was kind of a waste.
Yeah.
But it's whatever.
But that's the way a lot of these sequels are. It's like, oh my God, why did you think that was an okay way to make a Hellraiser movie?
Right.
Like, her motivations are all wrong. She does things that are completely out of character, and, you know, like you said, Trevor is meant to trick us into thinking he's actually a good guy, so we kind of feel for him a little bit, and then we start seeing that, he wanted to kill his wife, he was cheating on her left and right.
Yeah.
You know? And
I think it would have been more interesting if they just would have left Kirsty out, just had a new female character as that, you know.
Yeah. Well, and he shouldn't have called her Kirsty to begin with in the script.
Right.
Also. And didn't you said she had a dog named Cotton, right?
So a dog?
I thought somebody said that. Maybe it was. I thought I was talking to you, but maybe it was an interview I read or something where, in the first draft of the script, her name was Kirsty and she had a dog named Cotton.
Oh, I can't confirm that. Okay. That was not with me. I haven't read the original script in quite a while. Probably ever since Hellseeker came out.
Doug Bradley said, "Hey, it's going to confuse everybody when you got a character named Kirsty in a Hellraiser movie, and she's not the same person."
Mm-hmm. There are cut scenes from this film, which are available on the DVD, but they're not in the movie, which extend a little bit more the scene where Kirsty is talking to Pinhead after she opens the box for Trevor. Yes. Apparently, Doug Bradley wrote some of those lines for Rick Boda, and he said, "You know what? Yeah, maybe we could like make a little interaction here. You know, have them talk a little bit, Kirsty and Pinhead, because they got a story together." And he was like, "Yeah, okay." So he wrote some extra lines, but then when they were making the movie, I think Rick Boda said, well, we're still going to cut this scene, but we'll put it in the DVD as an extra.
They could be like, well, I haven't seen you since the 80s.
Yeah. But it's an interesting film. Visually, it's very well made. I like the music on this movie as well, the soundtrack.
Yeah, this was where I really noticed that they really just kind of went off and did their own thing, and there were no thematic hooks or anything relating to the old.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I got a soundtrack promo from the composer himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's really nice soundtrack. I'll share it with you guys later. And I would say give it like out of 10, probably 6 or 7 for this movie.
It depends on what context you put it in. I mean, like if you compare it to Hellraiser, would you do that or?
No, if I compare it to Hellraiser, I'd probably give it like a 5.
3.
Right.
3? Did you say 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. For 3, I would save that for movies like, I don't know, Manos, The Hands of Fate, or really bad movies that you can't even make it through, like Plan 9 from Outer Space.
I like Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's funny.
Yeah. So what did you guys have any, what are your final opinion about the film?
This one is better than I thought it was the first time around, and Hellraiser 5 was worse than I thought it was.
Yeah.
I appreciate both the movies now much more than I did on my first viewings of them. And not that I just viewed them once. I have viewed them maybe a couple times since I first got the movies. But it's good to know that I can go back. And so I'm going to go back to watch Deader now because I didn't really like Deader at all. So maybe I'll find something there. I think it was just the whole direct-to-video thing, and the stories were so far off from the original, artistic expression of Barker and everything that I just kind of never gave him a chance.
They always felt like cash-ins and like they're taking advantage of Clive Barker, which that's
right.
What always made me. I hated the sequels a lot of times before I ever even saw them.
Right.
I remember reading in the old Hellbound website, there was a news bulletin called Leviathan Lamentations, and I remember them mentioning stuff about Hellraiser 5 and 6. Hey, we got some synopsis from, some convention, some guy said. And I think at one point there was one which is supposed to be like this little kid opening the box with his sister and stuff, and there was going to be like hundreds of Cenobites because we're going to see hell again. It's going to be populated.
Right.
And, I don't even know where that stuff came from and what happened to that. I'm just wondering how many different treatments they must have gone through.
They must have a ton. I mean, you think about like these directors came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
In Paul Kane's book, the Hellraiser and what's the title? Hellraiser and the Legacy. There's a really great script that they bring up that I think anybody who likes the first 2 movies would want to see this movie made. And I'd have to open up the book someplace to open it. But that's something to look forward to for buying that book in paperback because just a wonderful idea for a script that never was made. So.
Another thing about this film, Hellseeker, is that we were talking about that script that has like a Kirsty that's not the real Kirsty, but apparently that was not really the first draft. Because when I talked to Doug Bradley once, he told me, 5, they got some script, and ever since then there's been scripts that they just rewrote to put Pinhead in, and like we know that's true for Deader and. I don't know much about Hellworld. That might have been like an actual Hellraiser script from the start. But 6 was actually, I'm reading this from IMDb in the trivia section. It says, like Hellraiser Inferno before it, Hellseeker was originally a non-Hellraiser related horror script owned by Dimension. To save money on writing a completely original Hellraiser story, the script was quickly edited to insert the Cenobites and references to Kirsty's past with them. A scene written specifically to try and bring the largely unrelated plot in line with the canon of the first 2 Hellraiser films was subsequently cut, but is available on DVD as a special feature, which is that scene that I was mentioning. And then, of course, they were really going on a string budget for these movies, like when they did like Deader and Hellworld in Romania back to back, and it says here that at this point Dimension Films placed the cast and crew under a gag order, hindering Rick Boda's opportunity to promote the film when Fangoria magazine attempted to do a cover story on it. Star Ashley Lawrence, however, broke the gag order to speak about the film, claiming that she had only been paid enough money to make a payment towards a new refrigerator.
Yeah,
so
I read that article.
I don't know, take this with a grain of salt because it's IMDb. We don't know where this comes from, but I wouldn't be surprised because, yeah, they were really getting cheap with the movies at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I found the quote here in the Paul Kane's book, The Hellraiser Films and Their Legacy, about this movie. It was called Hellraiser Hellfire, and it revolves around Jack Credence, a businessman with his finger in every pie, and is the head of a cult called the Nine. Members of the Nine think Credence draws his power from ritual magic, whereas actually it comes from a pact he made in the 80s with a figure very familiar to Hellraiser fans, Pinhead. Pitted against the forces of hell this time was a shy but tough American, Christine Freely, who works in a bookstore Credence happens upon and who has access to antiquated tomes that might just help in her battle. So that was that.
Well,
thanks for that.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
what number was that? What year was
that? Let me see. That looks like... Let me see. I just closed the book. Here it is. Let's see.
I completely admit to my fault in not having that book yet. I need to correct that ASAP.
Oh yeah, definitely, because there's a lot of great information that Paul Kane's put in here that I did not know at all until I read this book.
And we want to talk to Paul Kane, but we don't want to do it until
we read the book.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely. So thanks for that. So it was called Hellraiser Hellfire.
Hellfire.
Very interesting.
Wow.
I can give you the name of who was writing it. I believe it was. I'm not familiar with his name, but you guys might be.
I wonder if the studio bought it and then just put it in a drawer.
Let me see. It says Michael Marshall Smith.
Okay.
Nowadays known for the Strawman thrillers, written as Michael Marshall.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That was a really interesting revelation that I got from this book. A movie that actually sounded interesting.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we didn't keep you from any important stuff, Max. Thanks again.
Not at all. Not at all. It's great to talk with you guys.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
And we'll let you know again when we're going to go into 7 and 8.
All right.
So one thing that was bugging me about Hellraiser 6, something that I'd forgotten to mention, is that you can't send people to Pinhead by murdering them. So I think that's a pretty major flaw in Hellraiser 6, right? I mean, you just killing, if just dying was enough to go meet Pinhead, then he wouldn't care if he got 5 more souls or whatever, because he's gonna get all of them. So anyway, that was kind of another quick beef that I had with Hellraiser 6, but you can find us on the web at www.clivebarkercast.com. This podcast is in iTunes, so leave us a review. It's also in every other thing that I could think of: Stitcher, the iTunes or the Xbox Music or whatever they're calling it, and Podio and Pocket Cast and Double Twist, and these are things I haven't even gone into, but I know that they're in there. So anyway, you can find us on Facebook. There's also join the Occupy Midian group on Twitter. We're at BarkerCast or at Occupy Midian, and the forum is www.clivebarkerfans.com/forum, and the theme was by Colin Lakativa.